Raven Hill Manor stood against the twilight, its broken windows and ivy-covered walls whispering secrets of a dark past. Clara hesitated at the bottom of the hill, clutching the leather strap of her satchel tightly. A dense fog curled around the edges of the trees, as if the forest itself was trying to pull her back. The stories she'd heard echoed in her mind, of people who entered the manor and were never seen again, or those who came out broken, speaking in riddles about lost souls. But none of that mattered. If Daniel's spirit was here, she would find him. As Clara pushed open the creaking iron gate, the temperature dropped sharply, and the sound of the world seemed to fade away. No more birds chirped, no insects buzzed. Only the low groan of the gate and the crunch of her boots on the gravel path broke the silence. The manor loomed before her like a living entity. Its darkened windows seemed like hollow eyes watching her approach. A single dead tree stood by the entrance, its gnarled branches reaching toward the sky like skeletal fingers. She placed her hand on the massive oak door, its surface scarred with deep grooves and claw-like marks. With a deep breath, Clara pushed it open, the heavy door groaning loudly as if protesting her intrusion. Inside, the air felt thick with sorrow, almost tangible, like walking through invisible cobwebs. Dusty chandeliers swung gently, though there was no breeze. The faint smell of decayed roses lingered in the air, mixed with something metallic, like rust or blood. The grand staircase in the foyer rose into shadows that swallowed its upper reaches. Clara's eyes were drawn to the portraits lining the walls. Their subjects were dressed in Victorian attire, their expressions stern and lifeless. Yet, as she moved, Clara couldn't shake the feeling that their eyes followed her every step. A sudden noise startled her, a faint creak, as if someone had stepped on a loose floorboard. "Hello," Clara called, her voice trembling. It echoed back to her, mocking her loneliness. She ventured deeper into the manor, each step stirring up small clouds of dust. The long hallways seemed to twist and stretch unnaturally, making her lose her sense of direction. It felt like the house was alive, shifting and watching her. Her heart pounded when she spotted a cracked mirror hanging at the end of a corridor. As she drew closer, her reflection began to blur and warp, her face twisting into something unrecognizable. She stumbled back, but the distorted version of herself in the mirror remained, its hollow eyes staring at her long after she turned away. Suddenly, she heard it, a sound that made her blood run cold. The soft, mournful melody of a piano echoed through the empty halls. It was distant yet hauntingly familiar, tugging at her heart. Clara followed the sound, her feet moving faster than her mind could process. The melody grew louder as she approached the grand ballroom. Her hand trembled as she pushed open the heavy double doors. Inside, moonlight streamed through shattered windows, illuminating the dusty floor. At the center of the room was a grand piano, its black surface polished to an unnatural gleam. A man sat at the piano, his back to her. The sight made Clara freeze. His silhouette was achingly familiar, the broad shoulders, the way he tilted his head slightly as he played. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The man stopped playing, his fingers hovering over the keys. Slowly, he turned, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. It was him, her Daniel. He looked exactly as he had the last time she saw him, wearing the same navy suit he'd worn on the night he disappeared. But something was wrong. His eyes glowed faintly like embers in the dark, and his skin was pale, almost translucent. "Clara," he said softly, his voice a mixture of love and sorrow. "You shouldn't have come here." Tears streamed down her face as she stumbled toward him. "I've been searching for you. Where have you been? What happened to you?" Daniel stood, his movements slow and deliberate. "I've been here trapped. This place, it holds us. It won't let me go." Clara reached for him, but her hand passed through his, as though he were made of mist. A sob escaped her lips. "No, this can't be real. You're here. I can feel it." Daniel stepped back, his expression pained. "This place isn't what it seems, Clara. It's alive, feeding on the souls of those who enter. You have to leave before it takes you too." "But I can't leave you," Clara cried, There has to be a way to save you. Daniel hesitated, glancing toward the shadows that seemed to gather at the edges of the room. There is a way, he said finally, but it comes at a cost. What cost? Clara asked, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her heart. To break the curse, someone must take my place. The manor demands a soul to free another. Clara's blood ran cold. You're asking me to give up my life? Daniel shook his head. I would never ask that of you. But the house, it will tempt you, twist your love into something it can use. Promise me, Clara, no matter what happens, you won't give in. As he spoke, the room seemed to darken, the shadows pressing closer. The air grew colder, and the faint sound of whispers filled the room. Clara felt the weight of unseen eyes watching her, judging her. I don't care what it takes, she said, her voice firm. I'll save you, Daniel. I won't let this place keep us apart. Daniel's face crumpled with anguish. Clara, please don't let it take you too. Promise me you'll leave. But Clara couldn't make that promise. Her heart ached with the thought of walking away, leaving him behind to suffer alone. She knew the stories of Raven Hill Manor were true. This place was cursed. But if there was even a chance to save Daniel, she would take it. The shadows in the room began to twist and writhe, forming shapes that loomed over her. Clara felt a chill crawl up her spine as a voice echoed in her mind. Love is a sacrifice. Are you willing to pay the price? Here's an updated and extended version of your script with an additional 500 words for more detail, depth, and emotional impact. Clara began to search the house, calling out, Daniel, are you here? She received no response until night fell. That's when she heard it, the soft sound of a piano echoing from the grand ballroom. Trembling, she followed the haunting melody, her heart pounding louder with every step. The grand ballroom was bathed in an eerie glow from a shattered moonbeam that streamed through a cracked window. There, at the piano, stood a man, his back turned to her, playing a tune that was achingly familiar. Daniel, she whispered, her voice trembling as tears welled in her eyes. The man stopped playing but didn't turn around. Clara, he said, his voice soft yet tinged with sorrow. You shouldn't have come here. She stepped closer, her breath hitching. I had to find you. Where have you been? What happened to you? Daniel finally turned, and Clara gasped. He looked exactly the same as he did the day he disappeared, his features frozen in time, but his eyes glowed faintly, and his skin was pale, almost translucent. I'm not alive, Clara, he said, stepping closer, his voice breaking. This place claimed me, and now that you're here, it won't let you leave either. Daniel explained the dark truth about Raven Hill Manor. Long ago, the mansion's owner, a heartbroken widow named Evelyn Blackwood, had turned to dark magic to bring her husband back from the dead. But her rituals went horribly wrong, cursing the house to trap the souls of anyone who entered. Everyone here is a prisoner, Daniel said, his tone heavy with regret. But there's a way out for you at least. Clara shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I'm not leaving without you. Daniel's expression darkened as the shadows around him seemed to deepen. The only way to free me is to destroy the curse, but it requires a sacrifice. Your life for mine, the weight of love. Clara was torn. She had spent years searching for Daniel, but the thought of giving up her life filled her with terror. The manor seemed to sense her hesitation, its shadows growing longer, its whispers growing louder. She wandered the halls aimlessly, her thoughts in turmoil. Each room seemed to echo with laughter, screams, and whispers from the souls trapped within. Clara saw glimpses of their lives through spectral figures reenacting their final moments, couples embracing, only to dissolve into mist, or lone figures weeping in eternal sorrow. That night, Clara had a vivid dream. Evelyn Blackwood appeared to her, draped in mourning black, her eyes hollow and piercing. You would give everything for love, wouldn't you? Evelyn asked, her voice like wind through a graveyard. I did, and look where it got me. Don't make the same mistake. Evelyn extended her hand, revealing the ritual dagger, its blade gleaming with an unholy light. Clara recoiled, but Evelyn only smirked. Love is a powerful force, my dear. It can either save you or destroy you. Choose wisely. The ritual begins, When Clara woke, she found Daniel sitting beside her, holding her hand. His gaze was tender, but filled with sorrow. "No matter what happens," he said, "I will always love you. But I can't let you do this. Leave while you still can." Clara knew Daniel would never ask her to sacrifice herself. But she also knew she couldn't live in a world without him. That night, she found the ritual dagger hidden in the mansion's library. The library was a vast, decaying room filled with books covered in dust and cobwebs. In the center of the room was a locked chest, and inside it lay the dagger, pulsating faintly as if alive. With trembling hands, she prepared to perform the ritual that would break the curse. She lit candles around the grand hall, their flickering flames casting haunting shadows on the walls. The spirits of the manor began to stir, their whispers growing louder, forming a symphony of anguish. As Clara stood in the center of the hall, the spirits began to materialize. They circled her, their ghostly forms filled with pain and longing. Evelyn's voice echoed through the air. "Are you sure this is what you want? Love can be a prison just as much as a sanctuary." Daniel appeared, his face etched with despair. "Clara, don't do this. You'll be trapped here forever." Clara smiled sadly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Forever with you. Betrayal and sacrifice." She raised the dagger, ready to pierce her heart. But just as she was about to strike, Daniel lunged forward, grabbing her hand. His touch was cold, but his grip was strong. "No," he shouted. "I won't let you do this." The force of his touch shattered something in the air, and suddenly, the manor began to quake. Evelyn's laughter rang out, wild and triumphant. "You fools! The curse feeds on your love. One soul was never enough. It wanted both of you." The spirits shrieked as the ground beneath them crumbled, revealing a swirling abyss of darkness. The air grew heavy, and Clara felt herself being pulled toward the void. Realizing they'd been tricked, Clara and Daniel clung to each other as the abyss threatened to consume them. Daniel's grip on her tightened. "I won't let this be the end," he whispered. He kissed Clara one last time before pushing her away. She screamed as he stepped into the abyss, his form dissolving into light. The sacrifice shattered the curse, and the manor began to collapse, its walls disintegrating into ash. A bittersweet ending. Clara ran, her heart breaking with every step until she was outside, gasping for air. When she turned, the manor was gone. All that remained was a patch of scorched earth and the faint sound of a piano carried on the wind. Clara knelt on the ground, clutching the dagger. She whispered, "I'll love you forever, Daniel." From the distant mist, she thought she saw his silhouette, just for a moment, before it disappeared. What would you do for love? Would you sacrifice everything, or let go to save yourself? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling stories.